Okay.
Grace, I did want to just kind of get your initial reaction to the clarification from the Maine Department of Labor that, public sector employees, including educators, are going to either have to get the COVID-19 vaccine or submit to weekly produce a weekly negative test. What's your reaction to that?
So I will say what I'm sure you've heard before is that our educators want to be in school with our students, and we want our students in school. And we were very much looking forward this fall, over the summer months, we're looking forward to having that be the priority. We did do in-person last year to the extent that that was possible and keeping people safe. And we were very hopeful this summer. And then, of course, we've seen the numbers of cases really rise. But still, we want to be in school. We want our students in school. That is what's best for their learning. And we know that vaccines keep people safe. And so people who are eligible to be vaccinated are encouraged to be vaccinated. And certainly having that option for those that, for whatever reason, aren't vaccinated, that they will be tested regularly, will help to prevent the spread, reduce or prevent the spread. And so keeping everybody safe is the priority, basically. That's it.
Totally. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask before we kind of get it more into the mandate, because I don't think you and I have had a chance to speak about this before. What's the MBA's position on the US CDC guidance that calls for universal masking in schools, the 3-foot separation, pool testing, so on and so forth? What's the MBA's position on that?
So as soon as the Maine CDC adopted the US CDC recommendations on those mitigation strategies, the MEA Board of Directors met very quickly and does have the position that that is what all districts should be implementing. And we've been working very hard with other education organizations as well to see that districts are applying those requirements. Well, they're not requirements, are applying those recommendations. And whereas there were requirements last year. And so that has certainly been ongoing work that we've been doing to see that universal masking is what's being done in our schools, again, to keep both our students and our educators safe.
Mm-hmm. Have any of your members pushed back at all on, are you requiring them to follow that guidance? And has there been any pushback from any of the members of the association?
So I have my mask right here, and I need to wear it at times as well, unless I'm, by myself in a, certain quarters. And so nobody likes wearing masks, I imagine, but it is what keeps people safe, and it does diminish, prevent, reduce the spread of this virus. And unfortunately, there's so much misinformation that's been out there. And has prolonged this pandemic and affected all of us. So we really want to be sure that people are following those recommendations of the Maine CDC, following the science, doing what we can to keep safe and get through this.
So you haven't had any members that have not been in compliance? All your members have been in compliance?
I have not asked each and every member, but certainly we've been encouraging the districts to implement universal masking, and we've heard that call from our members that is what they want to be seeing going on in districts. Again, we want to be keeping our students safe as well as our educators.
There is, generally speaking, regardless of the profession, we dealt with this with healthcare workers, people who were in favor of getting the vaccine, but not in favor of a mandate. Have you had to have that discussion with, any of your members or any districts, and any idea just kind of how this plays out going forward? Are you expecting that there will be lots of, educators or staff who say, I won't submit to this and I'll leave the industry?
Again, they're calling for either vaccination or regular testing. And we believe that our collective bargaining will need to come into play here in terms of implementing those requirements. Certainly we need to have educator voices on making the decisions about how all of this will work. And so we will see how that goes forward. Those rules are not out just yet, so we'll see what the time frame is for it as well, and what the details of the plan will be for Maine, given what the federal agency will be putting forward and issuing. And again, we don't know the time frame for that either, but should be soon.
I think, and that was one question I had asked the Department of Labor that they didn't have an answer on yet was, is this going to apply to a specific campus or will it apply to an entire district? Which I would imagine most districts have at least 100 employees, right? Even if it's a regional or an SAU kind of thing.
Right. I don't know the answer to that. We do have a number of small districts, but I don't know the numbers. The Department of Ed would have more information about the exact numbers in districts across the state. So we'll see how this works out for Maine.
I mean, overall, what's, we kind of talked about this at the beginning, but what's your feeling behind this, and what do you think most of your members will be, feeling as they kind of react to this news that they will either need to produce a weekly test that shows they're negative for COVID, or they'll need to get the vaccine?
So we've been hearing from our members right along that they want to be sure that we are keeping everybody safe, and that has been the absolute priority, and not just in our schools, but our communities need to be doing everything that they can to be keeping people safe in the state, and certainly our students and our educators. And so that is, again, what we will keep advocating for until we're through this and even beyond. That's important. But certainly it's absolutely critical now that we're following those mitigation strategies. We're following them carefully. We're following them in our schools and in our communities. And we want to be sure that we are getting our kids in person and not having the disruptions that we've already seen due to quarantines. And so again, that's why we've had that as a priority.
I did want to ask you one last thing. You saw the news release this morning from the Department of Ed about in the last 30 days, roughly 1390 cases involving kids or students essentially. What's your reaction to those numbers?
So although it's certainly dismaying and it's disruptive for where that's happening, it's kids coming back into school from having been out in the community that is bringing that into our schools. And so we want to be sure, again, that our communities are following what the Maine CDC has been recommending right along: indoor masking, and certainly if you're eligible for vaccinations, encouraging those vaccinations. They've done so much to make them accessible. Certainly, we've seen a lot of really important leadership in our state and in DC as well recently, in terms of trying to get people to do what is right to keep people safe. And that is just so important when it comes to our students as well as to our educators.
Well, Grace, you've answered all of my questions. I appreciate it. Is there something that I didn't ask you that you think is important to communicate to the public from your stance?
I just always want to say that our educators are working really, really hard again already in some just such challenging times. We really are hopeful for the support of our communities in doing what's right to keep everybody safe. And so we will stay on top of things and keep working to see that happens.
If you don't mind me asking, I don't know if that was a Zoom glitch or perhaps maybe you're getting a little bit emotional when you're saying that.
Well, this is taking a toll on everybody, and certainly our educators are just working so hard, and we want to be sure that we're supporting them. And so I do hear from them about how exhausted they are, and it's September. It's just a few weeks into the school year, but I'm hopeful that things will be getting better and that they will be getting better very soon. But again, that will take the community effort that we want to see, and keeping everybody safe and doing what's right so that we finally get through this.
Do you think that this announcement from President Biden and then kind of ultimately the trickle down through the Maine Department of Labor is going to put us on that path towards the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak?
Well, we will be hopeful that we are on that path and that light at the end of the tunnel is coming sooner rather than later. So that's what we'll keep hopeful about it.
Grace, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for making some time to talk to me. Is there anything else we didn't cover that you want to add?
No, I think that's really about it. I just, again, the misinformation that's been out there throughout this pandemic has just done harm and prolonged it. And we hope to be sure that we are, as you said, getting closer to that light at the end of this very long tunnel.
I will ask you one last question, because I know you've now mentioned that now a couple of times. What is maybe the single biggest or maybe top 2 pieces of misinformation that you hear from your employees regarding the pandemic? Not necessarily vaccine related, but it could be. What are the top 2 that you hear?
Not from our educators, but from the public and some of the public comment at school boards, and just hearing that division on what's really going to be the right thing for our school districts to be doing, to be keeping people safe. It's been very hard to listen to that, and to be very hard to listen to some of the reports of that. And so our school boards and our superintendents have been having so many meetings and trying to have the right decisions made to, again, keep students safe. That is certainly their obligation to do that, as well as to keep the staff safe. And so we want to be sure that that continues to happen, that as we go forward, those Maine CDC recommendations are really important to be following.
Now for real, no more jokes, no more games. I'm going to let you go. I appreciate all of your time. Thank you, Grace.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you a question?